to all attendees, please don't be shy, send some questions in. I'm not seeing any questions at the moment, but I think perhaps I'd like to start the discussion myself. I think some really interesting, important points there about the really outlining, I think, the significance of World Heritage Sites in terms of enabling risk assessments and adaptation planning, and acting as demonstrators, if you like, for other forms of cultural and indeed natural heritage sites around the world. I'd like to ask Isabel a question just about the challenges of integrating climate change risk assessment and adaptation planning within management plans, within World Heritage Site management plans. Is that happening? Is that beginning to happen? What sort of stage do you sense we're at? And is there a willingness and an awareness of climate change as being an increasing threat?
Thank you for the question, Erwan. Yes, of course, climate change is really, I mean, a major issue of the reflection of the World Heritage Committee and also the World Heritage Center. We will be publishing soon a revision of the climate change policy for World Heritage properties. It's still in the drafting process with a panel of experts. It might be presented at the forthcoming meeting of the World Heritage Committee, which is for the time being postponed. But yes, I mean, the first response is, yes, to have this non-binding approach of a policy that the different state parties will adopt or perhaps include in their own national legislation. But of course, what you are aiming at with this project and what you and the work you have conducted, I mean, in terms of finding indicators, tools, is much more ambitious and would really be worth that it is integrated fully in the management plan. Because if we compare, for example, the threat of mass tourism and the threats of climate change, they are, I mean, at an equal level. They are as much, they are very important, and the impact are, I mean, of course, different in nature, but I mean, similar in terms of damages to the World Heritage properties. Therefore, we should be much more forward-thinking in adapting the operational guidelines of the World Heritage Convention, so that we do not only, I mean, address conservation per se, but also, I mean, be more open to the new challenges, which have been very, very carefully, I mean, reviewed, studied, and by the different actors, and not only, I mean, the World Heritage Site Manager, but the whole heritage community. So we at the World Heritage Center and with the committee, and the advisory bodies, we should be in capacity to include this new knowledge, I mean, the result of this research. So, but it's still, I mean, it's going on. It's a process.
Indeed, thank you for that. And a few comments have come in really on that subject. Some talking about the role of ICOMOS in terms of contributing to the UNESCO's review of climate change. Also, a specific question, I think really what you were talking about, Isabel, about is climate change now a desired category of revised and new management plans? I don't know if you want to say any more about that specifically.
Oh, yes, we are working on on updating the climate change policy with the advisory bodies, IUCN and the ICOMOS International. Of course, I mean, they have their own tools, but what we are aiming at is that this tool this new policy is formally adopted by the World Heritage Committee as, I mean, a key element to sustain the integrity and the authenticity, which are the key factors for the outstanding universal values of the property. So yes, I mean, we are working in close collaboration with ICOMOS and IUCN, and the climate change is a major subject of our cooperation.
Thank you. A couple of questions about the extreme impacts of climate change and loss, and how we are having to increasingly consider the ultimate loss of sites or parts of sites, and how we factor that in. And actions that can be taken in anticipation of loss, or how we effectively manage loss in as positive a way as we can. A question here from Peter Cox. Does UNESCO accept that some World Heritage Sites may be lost due to the effects of climate change? And would support plans to invest and record such high-risk sites?
Of course, I mean, UNESCO is not in the position to say yes or no, we accept the loss. I mean, the loss is a loss for the whole humanity, and UNESCO is just, I mean, a part, a representative part of this humanity. I mean, the main question is, how do we as heritage professional succeed and try to connect this issue of the loss of our cultural heritage to the bigger issues of the global, bigger and global issues, such as, I mean, the economic and socio-economic crisis, I mean, financing, which should be really secured for this sector. And not hearing a lot, I would say, in the media today on the subject of where stand culture in the response that the international community and the, including, I mean, the financial agency will provide to the sector. So I think it's perhaps the answer stands in how we heritage professional connect our own issues with the other ones. So it's a question of language, but not only, it's also a question of commitment to the world, to the bigger world, that the heritage world. Not sure that, I mean, this is the answer you expected, but this is a reflection that the answer I wish to give at this very moment of very difficult times for the heritage and the culture sector at large.
I think we might come back to some of the big picture questions later on. There is a lot of comment about the forthcoming economic situation on the back of the COVID pandemic. But a couple of specific questions about local communities, and a question here from someone called Mark about are nomadic peoples like the Sami sufficiently linked to cultural World Heritage properties in your opinion to take part in their management, and how do we ensure that integration of decision making and connectivity between communities in sites, particularly in isolated areas, geographically isolated and challenging areas, and a request for any examples actually, if anything comes to mind.
I think this is a major question of for the governance of World Heritage property. Of course, I mean the crucial role and also the crucial knowledge that of indigenous communities for the safeguarding and the conservation of World Heritage Site has been acknowledged by the World Heritage Committee. Now it's included in the operational guidelines, and we are always at the World Heritage Center very careful to when it comes to World Heritage Site with indigenous community, that they have a say, their role is fully acknowledged in the governance system, including in management plan and all the other major document of for the governance of World Heritage property. But again, I think it's still in process. We can obviously do better. Because as you know, I mean, the nomination process of World Heritage that goes through the national authorities and national government, because we are an intergovernmental organization. So I think we should do really better in encouraging, I mean, more straightforward dialogues, more with the indigenous communities, and also try to change our perception of what is the important knowledge for the conservation of the site. So in Europe, we have, you were asking me if I had, examples. Of course, I mean, the Sami example in UNESCO is very well known, either through the World Heritage, but also through other programs, such as the language programs. But we have seen, I mean, a number of concrete steps taken lately. We have established a big forum for indigenous people. They will meet regularly on the side of the World Heritage Committee sessions. So I wanted to mention this, but you were asking me a number of examples. During the last forum in Baku, in Uzbekistan, there were a number of representatives of the indigenous communities from Canada, because Canada has presented a number of sites with indigenous community lately. So we see that this role again is coming more important. There are 10 indigenous people, communities representative attend the World Heritage Committee sessions. So again, it's a process, and the World Heritage property can really be a strong vehicle to strengthen their participation in the governance system of the World Heritage properties.
Thank you. I think a question here, you spoke about characterizing the available heritage resources, and a question, has that led to clearer criteria for triage, deciding how to invest in protective measures when a site is becoming beyond economic safeguarding? So really, I think the question is getting at examples of how a risk assessment process is helping provide focus in terms of identifying specific actions and adaptation planning.
This is very good question, because the choice to sustain, and the range of choices to sustain the World Heritage property might differ from one state party to another state party. I would say that within the World Heritage Convention, we do not have the tools to recommend to the national authorities which of these choices will be the best for the specific situation. But going back to your specific region, which is the Arctic and the northern region, again, and personally, I found the Arctic Resilience Report extremely interesting and a key tool to help to build this matrix of different factors and indicators to help national and local authorities to decide on which of this way forward, which of this new route which should be chosen in order to adapt, change with conservation of the properties. There is a number of World Heritage properties which are under threat because of development, for example, of fish farms or wind turbine. So, of course, we at the World Heritage Center and the World Heritage Committee, we evaluate the threat through heritage impact assessment and heritage impact assessment, such as visual, taking into account the visual threats and so on the change of the biodiversity. What I found very interesting in the Arctic Resilience Report was this notion of shift, which is either you accept a certain level of change in the biodiversity, or you, because you say no, this sort of new economic activities cannot take place, at the end you endanger the sustainabilities of the conservation resources at large. So do you see this is this sort of new tools? You are working on this sort of new tools with this project, these new indicators, which are very much needed to decide and to help the site manager of the heritage property to make their choice and inform their authorities in this process.
Thank you. Another question here, a very topical issue. Can you comment on how you see mass tourism as a positive and a negative? It says as a positive and a negative for areas with World Heritage Sites. As we know, some places are actively trying to reduce international visitor numbers, whilst others rely strongly on increasing tourism for economic benefit.
Well, this is a very delicate question at this very moment, and why? Because it's when you say mass tourism, you are halfway to the response of no, we should stop mass tourism. But when you are speaking of tourism, there is a sort of underlying message that this is a good tourism, which with educated people, who respect, I mean, the values of the site. So you see, it depends of what if you speak of tourism, cultural tourism, of mass tourism. Of course, mass tourism is a major threat, and I am not convinced that mass tourism brings enough in terms of economic benefits that compensate, I mean, the cost of the threats on World Heritage. So again, this is a question of measurements. It is a question of finding models to analyze what are the real economic benefits on the long term. So my personal position or view of this question is that Europe is in a very good place, is first placed to start this reflection on how to stop or change mass tourism. And what is happening today with the COVID-19 will, I hope, try to help to change the behaviors and start this reflection. But of course, we also must continue to encourage a tourism which is respectful of the site, because it is also a way to understand better each other. And this, to understand better each other, is, I mean, a fundamental value of the World Heritage Convention.
Thank you. I must say there's a lot of questions here. And thank you, Isabel, for this. We have another, we only have 10 minutes more, so I'm going to summarize a few general comments for the benefit of everyone. There is a lot of interest in the forthcoming economic situation and some discussion around COVID, and I think it would be worth us talking about that, certainly. Lots of interest in recognizing the importance of disaster planning, and following risk assessment, recognizing the importance of 3D recording, and the necessity in some cases of physical protection of at-risk sites. I must say, Isabel, there's also some comments here congratulating you on your straight and honest and knowledgeable answers. So we really appreciate this discussion. I think it's very useful and very enlightening. I think really to the COVID issue, I think a couple of comments coming in. One here from Chris Whitman in Cardiff. How do we ensure that climate change remains high on the list of priorities over the coming months, years, when the impacts of COVID-19 are going to be so demanding?
Yes. A simple answer would be that because climate change is already, and since at least 2 decades, on the agenda of the World Heritage Committee, it will continue to be addressed. Because once it is on the agenda, it remains throughout the years, because we have to respond to the committee request for updates on this field. So of course, yes, it will remain a main concern and issue addressed by the World Heritage Committee. But I mean, the other question, how we would combine this with the response to COVID-19. Again, this is a question to get to get the global picture and to see where culture and cultural heritage and natural heritage stand in this global picture. I will be frank again, I don't have the answer. And I'm sure, don't know if any people have the answer today, but I will be glad to hear, to hear this answer. I think what is the COVID-19 is teaching us is that we should really change the way we relate with our heritage. I think in terms of allocation of financial resources, in terms of acknowledgement of the work of the people for safeguarding our heritage, in terms also to better understand the different links between the project of the UN, I mean, to build a humanity, sharing a peace and respectful future, and our concrete and actual action, everyday action. I know it's a very general answer, but personally, I hope this crisis will help us change deeply our working methods and the way we perceived and understand the role of culture in our societies. I will be very, very happy to have, I mean, the views of my colleagues, all the colleagues, because it's not because we are in UNESCO that we have all the answers.
Thank you. And again, I think that view is very supported by some of the comments that are coming in, really talking about how the COVID-19 crisis has demonstrated how the world can change when there's a will to do so. And discussion about the new normal. So really, the sense that is beginning to emerge that really there will not be a reversion back to business as usual. Things will not be the same. And the key here being to learn from this experience, to harness that in a positive way, and to build in the safeguarding for the future that we're seeking. And I think certainly I'm of the opinion that aligns very closely with the climate change agenda. Thank you for that. I think we've covered most of the subjects. There is some discussion about funding and the exit of Britain from the European Union. I don't really want to go there at the moment because I think there's other priorities at the moment. I would just like to, I think we'll just wind up there actually, because time is getting on. And I'd like very much to thank you, Isabel, for those comments and answers. And again, just congratulate you on your straight talking and your honest answers to some very challenging questions as well, which at the moment there is not fixed answers for.
Yes.
And thank you very much for your keynote presentation. We're
Thanks,
very
everyone.
glad to have you. Thank you.